And I believe, as we'll learn in a moment, that the coiled serpent is referring to not just an evolution in the sense of the mental, on the physical, on the emotional, but even more so the spiritual aspect. And going back to the point about the serpent symbol being, ancient and synonymous with sexual energy, if you look at a lot of scripture-related artwork, you will see in a lot of them snakes that are either on the shoulder, on the head, around the neck of some of the deities, because it indicates risen sexual energy. In some of the ancient Egyptian artworks, you can see Thoth, I believe, Thoth, apologies if I'm mistaking that, with a bowl above his head, which is filled with this red liquid. And I believe there's a with the pharaohs, they have the snake on the top of the mask, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure there's a specific word for it. And it is an indication that the sexual energy, Shakti energy, in the form of the snake has risen, Kundalini, from the coils of the Muladhara chakra, the root chakra, up through the Sushumna, past the Ida in Pingala, up to the third eye, where you're opening up the spiritual dimension. And that vase is filled with that risen energy that has been transmuted, which would otherwise go to earth, up into heaven. Another example is Shiva. Shiva is always depicted with a snake around the neck or near the head, which is another indication of risen Kundalini energy up from earth to heaven. And if you're privy to the symbol of the snake, you find it everywhere. Moses, right, the Caduceus, Moses lifting up the scepter, the spear, to part the Red Sea. The Caduceus is the medical symbol, which shows two snakes intertwining around the staff up to a sphere, you can call it, with two wings aside it. And the wings are referring to the inner aspect of the brain, which actually looks like wings. So there's nothing is coincidence here. There's no coincidences here. It is everywhere. So, once you have that knowledge and you start looking, you're going, oh, there's a snake. Where's the snake? Oh, it's risen. The snake has risen. It's always referring to sexual energy. And, it's a fascinating phenomenon when, again, you're privy to the knowledge. So you have the knowledge now. Now, the turbulent serpent of sex will then be transformed into the docile serpent of wisdom, which will show the way out of the human towards the superhuman state. So again, refer to the superhuman, Superman, as Samuel B. War would say in The Perfect Matrimony. But man must not delay. He must unloose the coils before the monster crushes him. The symbol of a snake encoiling the body of humanity occurs in the mythology of various peoples, and Oriental literature mentions a serpent coiled up in a mysterious center of force inside the human body, the root chakra, the holy bone. Again, there are no coincidences. While the two are not entirely equivalent, the uncoiling of the serpent within the body, as of the entwining monster, is held to be man's evolutionary task. So I suppose more specifically, this is a, full maturity doesn't happen after 25 when your brain is developed. The next stage is then activating Kundalini, activating this dormant energy at the base of the spine, because that is going to be the spiritual conduit to you opening up, or let's say, taking off the filter of the pineal gland. And, there are various techniques to do this. Spinal breathing that create that piezoelectrical effect in the third ventricle, which is basically your brain kind of contracts and relaxes against the pineal gland. And there are many crystals on the pineal gland that if the brain compresses on the gland, it starts to release its metabolites. And you can do this through spinal breathing, which moves CSF fluid up the brain. So it's actually the fluid that's almost contracting the brain and squeezing the brain. It's called intrathecal pressure. So the pressure of the structures in the brain squeezing against the gland, which, are activating the pineal. There's also a blending of the apana and prana. The apana is an upward energy, and the prana, I believe, a downward. And those are more references to it's a chemical process that happens when Kundalini is rising, beyond just the blending of apana and a prana, but also the opening of the Sushumna, the middle channel, which means that you are balanced both the masculine and feminine aspects of your nervous system. Another way to know this is that you'll be able to, both nasal passages will be online. That's why you've probably seen Nadi Shumna, which means that you are breathing solely through one nostril to activate and clear the other nerve center. Probably getting too in the esoteric here, but this is all valuable stuff. We're talking about human evolution here, and these practices being a process beyond 25, where puberty doesn't end, but you're inducing another kind of puberty. So records of a serpent symbolism in some form or other have been found in all parts of the world. We've discussed this. Especially of universal occurrence are the legends about heroes who conquer an evil serpent. So this is a metaphor for sexual energy. You hear stories about the knight slaying the dragon, and these are all symbolic of man not conquering an outward entity, but conquering an inward one, right? Once you conquer the serpent, once you slay the serpent, it then is under your control, and you have it under, your jurisdiction, your agency. And there can be no doubt that these legends symbolize the necessity of man's victory over the domineering influence of sex. For the earliest times, folklore seems to have connected the serpent with sexual function. Erudite investigators have come to the conclusion that the serpent always has a phallic significance. Well, I don't need to tell you why. But what usually mystifies the student of symbolism is that through the serpent is exhibited as the representative of the evil principle, it is considered also in the opposite light, meaning that there is a duality to sexual energy. It can run you, or you can run it. You can use it for creating life, human life, or you can use it for actualizing God. I'm not saying that human life is evil. They're just two different things. And even the concept of evil is, something that I go back and forth between. I don't know if evil exists. I think maybe just ignorance exists. Evil in the subjective term. Of course, evil exists, but perhaps we won't open that box of worms today. Otherwise, this lecture will be 2-3 hours